All right. Today is Friday, April 7th, 2023. My name is George Woolbrecht, and I'm conducting an interview of Anna Woolbrecht at Galveston as part of my oral history assignment from Dr. Caherley's U.S. history class, and back to the food tour project at Houston Community College. Thank you for allowing me to join you today.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No
really
problem.
Excited.
All right, let's get right into the questions. Can you tell me your name?
Yes, my name is Anna Woolbrecht.
All right. Can you spell that for me?
Yes, it's ANNA WOLB as in boy RECHT.
All right. And when were you born?
I was born June 17th, 1971.
Wow.
I know it doesn't look like that, but yeah.
Of course. And where were you born?
I was born in the Philippines, Subic Bay, the Philippines. My dad was in the Navy, and he was stationed, he's American citizen, of course, and I was born on a naval base. And so he was in the Navy at the time, and that's where I was born. So I always have that unique story to tell people.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I wouldn't have guessed. All right.
You kind of knew it.
And you said you were born in the Philippines, but where was your family from?
My family, okay, so that's two different places. So my mom, her origin is from Spain. Her grandfather actually came here via Cuba. Trying to think he was born like the 1900s, so probably around 1920-ish time frame. He, with a shirt on his back, came to Cuba and got to the United States from there. So, and then my dad, he is from a small town in Alabama called Flat Rock, Alabama, and so he actually came, met my mom, and then that's how he got down to Tampa, which is kind of where I grew up.
Oh, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And which neighborhood did you grow up in?
So we lived a lot of places when I was little. From my dad being in the military, it wasn't really where we had a stable place until he got out, and I was still pretty young. I think we moved to Florida around when I was about 5. No, probably a little younger, probably around 3. And we lived in this neighborhood called Quail Hollow Elementary. And I'm sorry, Quail Hollow Elementary it was Quail Hollow Village. We went to Quail Hollow Elementary. But and it's funny because I just went back to Florida recently, and I went through that neighborhood, and it looked very different from what I remember growing up.
Oh,
it was very rural when I moved there, and now it's just so populated, and that part of Florida is very crowded and populated and just really booming.
Of course, a lot changes over time.
Yes.
And what was the neighborhood like that you grew up in?
It was nice. Like I said, it wasn't like it took us probably 30 minutes to get to a grocery store at the time. It's funny if you see that area now, but it was a nice, quaint little neighborhood. Very suburban. It had like a neighborhood pool that we would go to. It had like tennis courts. Nice neighborhood. I remember there was a 7-Eleven at the corner, and that was where we would walk. We'd ask our parents for a quarter and go to the convenience store and get some candy and things like that. That was our entertainment because there wasn't much else out there. So it was a nice little neighborhood. Very good place to grow up.
All right. And I know you described the neighborhood you grew up in, but can you describe the house you grew up in?
Yes, and it's funny because I thought the house was a lot bigger when I was growing up, but when I went back, I was like, gosh, this isn't as big as I remember. But it was originally, I think, like a 3-bedroom home, and then I was one of 4 kids, and I think my parents expanded out at the time, and they ended up having a garage and made 2 bedrooms. We just kind of got rid of our garage and made 2 bedrooms over there for our family. But it had a nice little swimming pool in the back. Lots of, I grew up in Florida. You had to it's hot all the time, so a lot of our entertainment was just swimming in the swimming pool and things like that. Oh. And we even had a diving board, which was a lot of fun.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. All right. And what schools did you attend?
Well, in elementary, it was Quail Hollow Elementary. Again, a small, nice little elementary school. I ended up going to junior high to Zephyr Hills junior high. It was like at least a 30-minute drive to get to the junior high.
Mm.
And then in high school, I went to Zephyr Hills High School. So nice, fun town. Zephyr Hills was a retirement community, so it was interesting. It was a different culture shock when I got out of Zephyr Hills, and I realized, people don't usually eat at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. They usually eat a little bit later, because that's what I was used to.
All right. And what were those schools like that you attended?
They were good. It was very family friendly. There weren't huge schools, so you had that relationship with your teachers, and I still remember a lot of my teachers from growing up. And then the high schools, the junior high, they weren't overpopulated like the schools you and your brothers and sisters went to. We could pretty much play every sport we wanted to play, and whereas here, where you guys grew up, it was very competitive, and you had to be like playing baseball since you were 2 to have a chance of making the baseball team. Well, here you could pretty much, if you had the desire, willing to learn, you could participate. So it was really nice environment to grow up in.
All right. And what did you do for fun when you were little?
Oh gosh, we did a lot of things. Of course, the beach was right there, so we would go to the beach a lot of times. Just in the neighborhood itself, we would just ride the bikes and go. We'd make like I said, it was a little bit of a rural community, so we would make tree houses, and I remember my brother one time made a homemade go-kart, and there was an empty field, didn't have brakes. We had to learn by stopping into bushes and things like that. But we just kind of played they had a local park. Again, there was tennis courts. I remember going to the tennis courts and doing things like that. So a lot of good fun. Oh, and pools. We would always go. Probably every one of my friends had a swimming pool, so we would kind of hop swimming pools and play different games there as well.
And I know you were mentioning some specific places that you used to play, but do you know the specific names and dates of those places as well?
Well, yeah, it was, the Quail Elementary, Village tennis courts. That was probably in the 80s, probably 70s, 80s time frame. But also, we went to the beach. We'd go to Clearwater Beach a lot. That was, it was about an hour drive away. Beautiful beach, still is. Again, that was always in the 80s that we would go. And we would go to the beach every year. It was for Labor Day weekend. We'd always go to the beach. We'd rent a cottage. Actually, I think then it was Indian Rocks Beach that we would go. Go every year. It was so fun just to kind of spend time with the family. We'd also visit a lot of this is probably something, you kind of expect Florida, and you expect the beaches, right? But one thing that we would do all the time is go to state parks. There's a couple of great state parks. We would go on a lot of holidays, like the Hillsborough State Park. It's beautiful. It has a lot of walking trails and suspended bridges and things like that. That was a lot of fun. We'd also go to this one state park. It was a little bit further north, called Withlacoochee River State Park, and you guys have been there too. Remember, they had the big tower, and they had the old houses, and you could kind of see the colonial view, a little historic. That was fun. But yeah, there was a lot of neat locations in Florida, not just the beaches, that you could, spend a lot of time with family.
Yeah. I'm assuming the 2 parks you talked about at the end there, those were also around the 80s?
Oh, yeah. We would go quite regularly, and it was around the 80s. Mm-hmm.
All right. And are you married?
Yes, I am married.
Oh.
As you know.
All right.
Yes, I am.
And what is your partner's name?
My partner's name, very similar to yours, is George. He's George Woolbrecht III, which is where that's your namesake right there.
All right. And where is he from?
He is actually from a small town called Bogalusa, Louisiana. That's where he was born, but he didn't really grow up there. So he was in Bogalusa until he was very young. He's actually the oldest of, his mom was the oldest child, and he was the oldest grandchild. So there was a long time before he had cousins and things like that. But he grew up they moved from Bogalusa to Dallas early on. So he kind of grew up in his really place where he grew up was in Dallas, Texas.
No?
And he loves Dallas. Talks about it all the time.
Of course. And how did y'all meet?
Well, we met. So the first time we met was I was interviewing. We actually worked at the same company. The company that I worked for out of college was at the company that your dad worked. So he actually came down to Auburn University, which is where I went to college, and he interviewed me at Auburn. So him and another coworker came down to Auburn, and they interviewed me for a job in Houston, Texas. And at first, it was a great interview. I'm sure I brought my charm, like I usually do.
Of course.
But yeah, so that's how we first met. And so then we worked together it was a smaller company called Competitive Technologies, and it later got bought out by American Express. So we kind of through that, we went into kind of different departments, and that's how we met, and that's how I came to Houston, actually. So I went from Florida to Auburn, and then I got a job from Auburn to Texas, moved out to Texas, and then that's where we started a family.
Interesting. And I know you said you started a family, but did you have any children?
Yes, I did actually, son. I did have a child.
Oh.
So I have 5 beautiful children.
Wow.
Yes, who's a great interviewer too. Never knew that.
There you go. Got extra points. And what were their names?
So my oldest I have 1 daughter and 4 sons. So the princess Elizabeth she's the oldest. She is Elizabeth. She is 22 years old. And next is George, my husband's namesake. So George the 4th. And then we have Nicholas, and you're actually 20. Nicholas is 18. And then we have Alexander, and he is 17. Sorry, it's hard to remember. And then I have James, who is 14 years old. So a lot of energy in our household, as you know, all the time.
And I know you told me about where your partners lived and where you grew up, and you told me where you lived and where you grew up. But where does your kids live now?
Oh, so my daughter is in Nacogdoches, Texas. Sometimes they call it Nacogdoches.
Wow.
I don't agree with that sentiment. But so she's still at Nacogdoches right now. She went to SFA. You, as you should know, you started out at SFA and then kind of decided that you wanted a little bit different kind of environment. So you did go to SFA for a little while, but you came back. Now you're in Houston with us, or in Katy, and going to HCC, great institution, and just getting some of those preliminary courses out of the way, and then Nicholas, Alex are still in high school, and so they're still here with us in Fulshire, and then we have James, who's in living with us as well, and he's in junior high.
All right. And now moving on to the food part of this interview. Do you remember when you first tried to cook?
Yeah, I will have to be very honest here. I'm not the best cook. I do prefer going out to dinner, but yeah, I remember this one dish my mom used to make. Of course, remember the origin is my mom is Spanish, and they came via Cuba to the United States. So we kind of what we did as a family, a lot of times all of our family gatherings, which were huge when I was growing up, we had huge family gatherings. And so very extended family gatherings, not just our, specific, our close family. It was like cousins and grandparents, and my grandmother was one of 9, and it was the whole family would get together. So and one of the popular dishes they would make is roasted pork, with black beans and rice, and fried platanos was huge too. So that was a dish that that we would have a lot growing up. It's delicious. So what? I'm sorry. The question was.
Just do you remember the first time
Yes.
you ever tried it?
Yes, I was very young. So this was kind of a common dish whenever we would get together. So probably, gosh, around five or so.
Oh. And did you ever learn to cook it? And if so, when?
So I did watch my mom cook this as we were growing up. So I probably learned it throughout. She probably, I would just watch her cook. I'd be just in the kitchen while she was cooking. So probably she didn't really have an official recipe, which was difficult because, I was like, Mom, can you just write it down so I can make this dish? But yeah, so I did learn how to cook it. I will say, I don't think I cook it as well as my mom cooks it, and it's really tough. You think it's easy if you follow the recipe, but sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. But I do make it. It has made it easier. So like platanos, you can now buy those in the freezer section and just fry them up. So a little cheat there, but it does work. It's still pretty good, not as good, but it works.
All right. And why do you cook this dish now?
So I cook this dish now just because it reminds me back of, it's delicious, of course. I mean, and it's, I've been experimenting with different ways to kind of cook it and things, but, it just reminds me of, my family back home and, those sorts of things. It's that connection, I think, that makes it even better.
Of course. And what's your favorite food?
My favorite food, of course I love Cuban food, but there's not as many good places in Texas for Cuban food. And Florida, of course, is notorious. So whenever I go back to visit the family, I'm always having to make sure we go to a Cuban restaurant. Not to say there aren't nice restaurants in Houston, but still, the ones in Florida, they're just much more available. And Cuban sandwiches and all that kind of stuff. Love that. But now, I would say, I think, as you probably know, I think I've kind of switched a little bit. So if I had to pick a restaurant to go to, I'm always wanting to go to Mexican food. Love Mexican food. So I think anything on the menu, love margaritas, just love the chips and salsa. And of course, I've got several places that I like to go to for different reasons. But yeah, so that's the other thing is, and I probably really should say Tex-Mex because I think that's the kind of food that I really like. And it's funny because you don't see those many Mexican restaurants in other places. Like it's somewhat popular in Florida or probably anywhere, but Texas definitely it's a unique Tex-Mex cuisine. So definitely whenever I go to a trip and come back, I'm like, I gotta go to Mexican food. Gotta have it. So.
All right. And I know you said Tex-Mex would be your favorite kind of food, but do you know what would be your least favorite food?
And I've kind of tried to change a little bit, but for years and years and years, I would never eat fish. Which I know sounds odd because I did grow up in Florida and it's, obviously fish is everywhere. But I have a story behind that.
Oh.
The reason I never liked fish is I have this, it's like it happened yesterday, is my, of course we had a lot of fish growing up. And so we were at my great-grandmother's house. And she was, first of all, if you've ever seen someone gut and clean a fish, not the best visual, and you smell a lot of interesting smells. But I do remember one time when my great-grandmother, and we went over to her house to eat, and I think she had some fish that she was trying to use before it was bad. Well, unfortunately, I think it was already bad, and she made this fish soup. I can't describe how awful that fish soup was. It was terrible, 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 terrible. And it wouldn't be so bad, but my mom, she didn't want us to be rude, and so she forced us to eat the whole bowl of the fish soup. Ooh. So trust me, and it smelled, it was awful. So after that traumatic experience, I still have a little PTSD from it. I just have never really liked fish, but I will say since I've gotten older, and I remember your dad was a huge part of this too, because he loves fish. He loves anything. He was like, Anna, no one likes bad fish. It doesn't mean no one likes that. So, so I have made a lot of strides in that direction, because you would be shocked, if my parents and everyone would be shocked if they knew that I can eat fish now, and it's not my worst food. I still have a little bit in the back of my head that's, bad fish. No, if it's any what smells fishy, not gonna eat it. But I've even had sushi, which is raw fish. So I feel like that's, trying to make strides, because, your taste buds change. So just some advice to you, just because you didn't like it at one point, keep trying it, and maybe you'll like it. But anyway, so I would say fish, but I'm working on it, getting there.
All right. And I know you kind of mentioned what would be your least favorite food and stuff like that, and your least favorite dish would be that fish soup. But what would be your favorite kind of cuisine?
Oh, for right now,
So like you just really eat the most.
Definitely, like I said, probably right now is Mexican food. Love any kind of good fajita meat, that sort of thing. Also, again, roasted pork, especially if my mom makes it. It's okay if I make it, but especially if my mom makes it. Black beans, I love the black beans and rice. But also too, of course, everyone loves a steak. So yeah, so I've definitely have always tried to make sure I try everything, and if even it's something that I didn't like in the past, let's try it again, see if I like it now. Maybe they, learning from my past mistakes, maybe they just prepared it poorly or whatever it is. So always try to be open to the different foods.
All right. And what role would you say food plays in your connection to people?
Well, I think it makes a huge deal, because I'm a big family person, as you can tell, and I grew up with a big family. Everything was very family centric, and even our family. And one of the things, the biggest times you can have a lot of dialogue is when you're eating dinner with family. So to me, like even going out to dinner or doing whatever, I can spend, it's not just about the actual eating, it's about talking, finding about your day. I mean, I can spend 2 hours going to lunch with a friend, because it's not about what we're eating the whole time. It's not about the food. It's about the food and the connection, the dialogue. How was your day? How's everything going? And I feel like food kind of like brings people together in one place. And just even like when we would grow up and we would have meals, and we'd kind of go around the table a lot of times, and what was your best thing that happened today? What was your worst thing? So it's food that kind of brought everybody together in one place, but it's the dialogue and the conversation that you have while you are together, and everyone has to eat, right? So they gotta come. We gotta get together. So I think that those are things that make food more of that's what helps you connect with other people.
All right. And that's what you basically said would connect you to other people, but how do you think your dish would connect you to culture?
Yeah, well, I think I'd have to go back to like just, like I said, that favorite dish that I said, the roasted pork with the black beans and rice and fried plátanos and all that stuff. It reminds me of all the family gatherings I used to have as a kid. Like, we'd have Christmas Eve, and I remember we came from a Catholic background, and you had to fast on Christmas Eve, and so we would wait, and it was a huge family gathering with, like I said, my grandmother was one of 9, and it was all her children, and then their children, and their children. So it was a huge family gathering, and we would wait to eat on Christmas Eve. We'd get there really late. They love to stay up late. The Spanish culture definitely likes late evenings. And we would wait, and we wouldn't have our feast until it was actually technically Christmas Day, which was like 12:01, which I don't think my parents liked it as much, especially when they had to do Santa Claus that night. Probably didn't get to sleep. but it was really a fun, exciting experience as a kid. I mean, just anytime you get to stay up late and your parents are okay with it, you're kind of, yay, this is fun. But and just being with all that family and so food was an integral part of that, right? So that's what we ate, and that's why we stayed for as long as we did, because we couldn't even, we had to stay at least till midnight, or you're gonna go home hungry. So that was not gonna happen. I gotta have my food. So no, I mean, so I think it's just, and it kind of, it's brought down from generation to generation to generation. So it just kind of reminds you of your ancestors and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I forgot another huge piece of food that I can't believe I forgot is guava pastries. Pastelas is what they call it. I cannot find it anywhere, and if your history teacher knows of any place to buy pastelas, please let me know, but I can only get it in Tampa. But that is just, it's a great dessert that I absolutely love. That was another thing, guava just in general, the jelly and everything. It reminds me again back to my growing up, my family gatherings, all that kind of stuff. So sorry, did I ramble on that question?
Oh yeah, no, not a problem.
You know how me, I like to talk about food and family. So.
All right. Well, going on more on that, what does food really mean to you?
Well, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but like I said, obviously you need food. It's nourishment. Everyone has to have food. But to me, like I said, I think earlier already touched on it, it's a connection. It brings people together. You're happy when you eat, right? So that happiness helps you connect with other people, and it's a way to kind of pass traditions down, right? Is a lot of times through food and those special recipes and things like that. So yeah, of course, I like myself some food, so I can always. I'm really not that picky, so.
All right. And would there be anything you'd like to add?
I think what I would like to add is this was an interesting interview, and I really appreciate kind of going down memory lane, because it does kind of bring you back to, where you are, and hopefully you've learned something from this too, as far as your background and your culture and the things that are important. But yeah, so I just think that so many people are from so many different places, and that's the one thing I love is I love to try different foods. I mean, one thing that's really nice about Houston in general, especially if you know someone. I remember one time at work, we worked with a lot of Indian people, and we went to an Indian restaurant, and it's really good to go with people that really understand the food and they know what restaurants to try and what not to try. So I love to explore. And then, a couple of our friends took us into great Chinese restaurants that were authentic, not just, the around the corner Chinese delivery food. So I think it's important. Thai food, I never knew how much I would like Thai food, and Vietnamese. I mean, I guess the thing is like, it's not only is it good to try these different things, but you do, and when you have a coworker or something that can show you these, great restaurants where they have the better food, not only is it a way to understand their culture, but to have some good food and expand your horizons, because everyone likes food, right? So yes, I mean, I think in Houston, I think is really one nice thing about Houston is there's so many different cultures and different foods that you can experience from all those different cultures too. So yeah, so I guess that's kind of what I wanted to add, is that, just, explore those and find a friend that can take you somewhere that maybe is a little off the beaten path, so you can try different things.
Yeah. And it really has been pretty interesting. I mean, I walked through backs of some of like where I lived and stuff like that, and now I know where you lived, where you grew up in, everything about your childhood and stuff like that. Even your husband, know where
your dad, you mean?
Know more about like where he lived, where he grew up, and
Did you know the story about the fish soup?
I did not. So it's just
now you know.
Picking
now
up
you
on
know.
some of those things. and like the family gatherings. You know, I think we've only been to one, so it's nice to, you know, hear about it. You know, see how.
Remember all those huge family reunions we used to go to and things like that?
Right,
You remember
exactly,
that?
that's
And
what
what
I'm
kind of food did we have there? We had the Cuban food. So.
Yeah. And just a lot of food. There's a ton. So it's nice to kind of like remember all that, you know, kind of experience it again. But yeah, thank you again for agreeing to meet with us.
Well, and one other thing I was going to say too is I think it's neat that you and your siblings and things like that. You probably have been at restaurants. You've explored and gone to different restaurants. I know you guys like to go to Asia Town and Acadia Asia Town and things like that. You probably have tried things that I haven't even tried. So I think that's neat.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. So you want to wrap it up?
Yes, ma'am. All right. So thank you again for meeting with us.
Anytime. I'm always available.
All right. And I had a wonderful time talking with you, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. But thank you. This concludes our interview.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure
Sounds
talking
good.
to you.
We got to give a shout out to the photographer over here too. So.
My
The
lovely sister
videographer.
Elizabeth.
So
Took
appreciate it, Elizabeth.
Hours out of her days across the week.
Thank you.